You're back with the Tales from the Honky Tonk podcast. Welcome back, everybody. I am your host, JWolf.
I'm your other co-host, Tyler Lovell.
And we want to just thank you guys for the first week. We had over 100 views, I think in total about 130 over all platforms. So just thank you guys for listening, for commenting, for sharing. We are excited for the direction of which this podcast is going to go. And we're excited to announce that this episode 2, is sponsored by Justin Jones.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised to hear that we had over 100 views in the first week. I'm not going to lie. I expected to have like 5 to 10.
Yeah, so
thank you all for joining in and supporting the podcast.
Yeah, so let us know. Let us know what music you guys are listening to, stuff that you want us to talk about, comment on any new music from this past week, last week that we've missed that you want us to circle back around to. We are willing to do that. So let's get into our country fixins for this week. Starting off, we're going to have Tyler do a tribute to Johnny Cash.
Yeah, so Johnny Cash's birthday was earlier this week. I don't remember exactly what day. I think you said it was the 26th. You looked it up?
Yeah,
which I think would have been Monday. But yeah, I really like Johnny Cash. I kind of got into his music a couple years ago once I started kind of getting back into country music more and kind of stopped listening to the radio as much. And then I started like searching for songs off of YouTube to add, and I was like, oh, I'll go check out Johnny Cash again. And the thing I like about him is his music is very storytelling, because it's very much like the songs of that era. All those songs seem to have a lot more storytelling than a lot of the more modern songs. Some of my favorite songs by him are probably There Ain't No Good Chain Gang. I just recently found out he did the story of John Henry, kind of put that into a song, which that's my favorite of those tall tales, or whatever the more literary correct term for them is. That was actually really cool to see. I also like One Piece at a Time. That's probably my favorite song by him, and Ghost Riders in the Sky. He was pretty influential as a country artist as well. He kind of bridged the gap back in the day between folk music and country music in its more early beginnings. Some of his songs also touched on civil rights issues as well as prison reform, which songs like Folsom Prison Blues and There Ain't No Good Chain Gang, I think, kind of help with that. But yeah, I really liked Johnny Cash's music. Happy birthday to him.
Yeah, happy birthday, Johnny.
Guess we'll be moving on then.
Yeah, just a comment on Johnny Cash. The song for me that always sticks out when I think of Johnny Cash is "Hurt," the cover that he did of the Nine Inch Nails song, like one of the last songs where he's just reflecting on his life, and I think it's just powerful. But yeah, it's interesting that you point out how he like bridged the gap between country and folk, because I think more of that folksy vibe is what a lot of younger, maybe not younger, but like 30s, 20s, like late 20s people that listen to country music associate with country music as that folksy element to it.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize that there was much difference between the two until I read that, and then what I was reading in my research kind of pointed out more of the difference between the two to me.
It reminds me of, which we'll get into Alan Jackson later, but it reminds me of Alan Jackson's song Gone Country, where he's going through the different scenarios of the different people that are thinking that they can just switch to country music to make money. And there's the one guy where he's like, it's like a folk singer, and he's like, oh, that stuff doesn't sound much different than Dylan. So
Yeah.
then he switches to country music. Yeah, funny. But yeah, keeping on with this week's country fixins. Miranda Lambert was celebrating her first number one hit as a songwriter, which she has other number one hits as a recording artist, but this was her first one as a songwriter for Morgan Wallen's Thought You Should Know. So shout out to Miranda. She is amazing. And speaking of Morgan Wallen, we're going to get into some contentious topic here with Morgan Wallen dropping One Thing at a Time, his newest album, 36 songs long, almost 2 hours in length. Tyler, what did you think of the album? I know you have some strong opinions.
I thought it was quite lengthy. I'm not gonna lie. Before we get into the Morgan Wallen thing, I just want to say I was actually kind of surprised that this was Miranda Lambert's first time #1 as a songwriter. I kind of figured, or I just thought maybe like back in the day she had more #1s, but I also don't know if she wrote like Gunpowder and Lead or stuff like that, because I feel like Gunpowder and Lead probably would have won awards back in the day. But yeah, getting into Morgan Wallen, I'm actually not the biggest Morgan Wallen fan. I guess I just don't personally care for him. His voice kind of has like a whiny tone to it to me. Not necessarily trying to call him a whiner, but his music seems to have a very whiny tone to it, and then the songs that don't, unfortunately for me, just have way too much auto tune. Like when I was listening to the new album, a lot of the songs, especially once they got to the chorus, I felt more like I was listening to a robot singing than an actual artist. Not gonna say he's not a talented singer, but there was just a little too much auto tune for me. There was a couple songs that I liked on the album. Out of the 36, there was only 2 of them that I actually liked. One was Money on Me, and the other was Tennessee Fan. Obviously, going back to what I talked about last week towards the end of the episode, I really like Tennessee Fan because it's about Tennessee beating Alabama, and then him switching a Alabama girl's opinion to being a Tennessee fan. But all in all, for me, I was overall not a fan of this album.
Yeah, as soon as I heard the Tennessee Fan song, I immediately thought of you. I was like, if Tyler likes any song on this album, it's going to be this one.
Yeah, it's one of the very few common grounds between me and Morgan Wallen. Actually, I guess I don't know if he likes Alabama or not. It was just more so making that song. I know he is a Tennessee fan and he is from Tennessee, but I will say this: I did see a picture of him in a leather jacket earlier this week, and I must say, even though I don't really care for his music, he is quite a drippy individual. He does have a good sense of fashion. I kind of was rocking with his leather jacket pretty hard.
So Morgan Wallen getting a little bit of love from Tyler. He's not going to get that much more love from me, actually. I was quite shocked going into this. I'm a Morgan Wallen fan. Definitely enjoy his music. I was very shocked with what I heard. So I'll go with the highlights before I go into the lowlights. Highlights for me were Born with a Beer in My Hand. When I heard that first song on the album, I was like, all right, this album is going to be a banger. Like, this is going to be great. I appreciate throughout the album, there's the theme and the struggle with alcohol, which we all know that he has had those incidents for public indecency, all that kind of stuff. So I just appreciate this toil in the album. To me, it shows a lot of growth for him as a person and him as an artist. And going on, Man Made a Bar, I thought that was very clever. How it's talking about how God made a girl and like how like this is the greatest creation, but he didn't make something for guys to go to when they get their heart broken by a girl. So then Man Made a Bar. Really enjoyed that. That just feels like a classic country song to be listening to. 98 Braves. I was telling Tyler about this earlier today. I really like that song, and being a baseball fan, I appreciated the reference to the 98 Braves. I'm not old enough to remember the 98 Braves, but as a baseball fan and fan of baseball history, I know that the Braves were called the team of the 90s. However, they only won one World Series in the 90s. So they're really not the team of the 90s. Sorry, Braves fans. It's probably the Yankees. Yankees won several, and I hate the Yankees. I don't want to admit that. So I could feel Morgan's pain being him being a 98 Braves fan and then now going through this heartbreak with this girl. So I thought that was clever. I know, Tyler, you said that there's a cover of that song that was really good, I believe.
Yeah, there's a up and coming female country artist named Erin Kinsey, and she actually did a cover of it, of just her playing the guitar, sitting on a staircase, singing it, and she did a very good job of singing it. I would highly recommend checking that out on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. Another highlight, I really, for the most part, like the singles, especially Don't Think Jesus, and then Thought You Should Know, obviously talking about the number one hit. I think they're just both beautiful songs. Don't Think Jesus, I think that Morgan's really touching on a crucial part. I mean, he's from the South, Bible Belt. There's a lot of people, like Christians, that act judgy and act hypocritical, just the way it is. And I think that's a lot of things that people have problems with. And to kind of see where you see Morgan's not perfect. Morgan wants to lash out, but he's getting judged by these people, and he keeps saying, like, I don't think Jesus would do it that way. But then he also gets to the point where Morgan's saying that if he were Jesus, like, he would essentially say to hell with him, like, because he's just that messed up of a person. But then there's that aspect of redemption that you see kind of throughout this album of a man that's been broken, that's trying to find redemption. You see it in this song where he's like, I don't think Jesus would do it that way. Because right, Jesus chooses to love sinners, and I think that's a pretty cool aspect of that. And then Thought You Should Know, that reminded me of a lot of Mama's song, I believe is the title, by Cody Jenks, where it's just that letter to your mom, just letting her know that even though she's raised a wild child, like that wild child is kind of finding his path and making things right. So I really like those two singles. Lowlights for me on the album is the length of the project, like Tyler touched on. 36 songs in 2 hours basically worth of playtime is just a lot to sit through. Especially when, for me, I probably only liked a third of the songs. I probably liked maybe just over 10. Ain't That Some? I didn't like that song. I know that was popular on TikTok.
Yeah,
So
it was.
sorry.
I had high hopes for it after hearing the chorus of it, and then I heard the rest of the song, and then I was actually a little bummed out with the overall experience of it.
I didn't like Sunrise. Yeah, Sunrise was another song that I tried to listen through, and I was just like, this is just not for me, man. And overall, like, my biggest grief with the album is the trap drums / production on so many of the songs. And I will stand by, I don't think that type of production belongs in country music. I think it just doesn't fit. I don't think I've heard a producer use it in a way where it sounds creative and it still sounds like country music and like something that I enjoy listening to. So if you guys disagree, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But to me, that's just not. It's like mixing something that just doesn't, oil and water, just doesn't quite sound good. It just sounds, to me, it cheapens the experience of listening to country music. But overall, I love the toil of this album. I don't want to completely diss Morgan on this, because I see the depth that he has at certain points in the album, and that, to me, those are the highlights, is to see that depth, that toil. This man that has been broken, has went through controversy, went through hardships, is trying to atone for his sins. He's really just walking that path, and I am excited to see where this goes from here. Hopefully he builds off that theme continuing, and this isn't just one off. But overall, I'd give this a 5 round.
I would probably score it lower. I'd give it a 4. There was another song on there that I was really, when I seen it, I was like, oh, this might be pretty good. I was kind of excited for it, so I started listening to it, and that was Keith Whitley. And he starts off by referencing I'm No Stranger to the Rain. And I thought the song was going to have a lot of elements of like Cole Swindell, or not elements of those songs, but elements similar to Cole Swindell's Heads Carolina, where he references the song by Jody Messina and then builds a story on it, as well as Song for Another Time by Old Dominion, where they reference a lot of old country songs and make kind of a storyline out of it. I was thinking this Keith Whitley one was going to be that, with Keith Whitley songs, and unless I missed some of them, the only ones I heard were I'm No Stranger to the Rain, which he used that one very well, I felt, but then towards the end of the song he uses Miami, My Amy, and it really didn't feel like it was used in a way that made sense to the song, other than to set up a rhyme or something to rhyme the next line with. But maybe I missed something in the song, but that was just that was the track I actually, once I seen it, was probably most looking forward to and was the most let down by.
When trying to figure out what to score this album, the hard part is like the 11 or 12 songs that I liked. I was comparing it to last week's Gravel and Gold by Dierks Bentley, and I was like, the songs that I do like off this album I think are better than the entire Gravel and Gold album. However, there's just a lot of other stuff that weighs it down, in my opinion. Yeah, Tyler, what would you score this? How many rounds are you giving it?
4.
4 rounds of Jose Cuervo?
Yeah, I'd give it 4 rounds. I don't want to score it lower because I feel like that's being too harsh on it, because like I'm not gonna knock him for releasing a longer album if he wants to, but it was just the way the songs sound and everything, and I don't know, I just wasn't the biggest fan of this album, but I felt like giving it below a 4 was too harsh.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so moving on from Morgan Wallen, I'll cover some other singles that were released this week. Wrong Right Now by Tyler Garden, and then Strawberry Wine and Cheap Six Pack, and a Cheap Six Pack by Travis Denning. I scored both of those 2. I'm sorry. I just did not find those songs enjoyable to listen to. Would not go back. Couple Spring Breaks Back by Priscilla Block. I typically like Priscilla's music. So I was a little disappointed by this one. I gave this one a 4. However, I think that what she's going for on the album, on the song, it does sound like a spring breaky song, and she does have some good imagery and some good lyrics. And there, just personally, wasn't my favorite. After that, there's Running by Ingrid Andress and JP Sachs. I gave that 5. I somewhat enjoyed the song. I thought it was pleasant to listen to. It didn't fully sound the most country to me, but I didn't hate it by any means. I don't know how often I would go back to it. After that, there was Hey Montana by Chase Matthew and Down in Flames by Keenan Smith. Gave both of those 6 rounds. I enjoyed those songs better than the other ones I've just mentioned. Thought they were pretty solid. And then, to me, the best single that I heard this week was Tough Country by the Panhandlers, Josh Abbott Band, Flatland Cavalry, William Clark Green, and John Bauman. So I gave that a 8. So big score for Tough Country. Thought that was a beautiful song that they did there.
Yeah, I'll have to check out that new Ingrid Andress song. I didn't realize she released one, but I really liked her song a couple years back, More Hearts Than Mine. That was actually, when I first heard that song, that was one of those songs where I listened to it like 20 times that day.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, this is catchy. So I'll definitely have to check that one out. The only new song that I seen this week, that's from this week, was a song from, it was Ashton Brooke Gill, and it was Cure for My Restless Heart. I'd give that 6 rounds. It was a pretty good song. I think it's the first song from her that I've heard. But I thought it was a pretty decent song, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10 rounds.
Yeah, something that I've thought about as I've started to do this. So someone that kind of inspired me to start this was Grady Smith. If you guys follow him on YouTube, shout out Grady Smith. But I listen to his taste. It's definitely shaped a lot of my own. So I'm looking for more of the lyrics, looking for more of that authentic sound. So yeah, sorry Tyler Garden, sorry Travis Denning, but just didn't cut it for me this week. But moving on from the country fixins, we're going back into our top 5s. So if you guys remember from last week, we went over top 5, Brad Paisley, top 5, Alan Jackson, where Tyler shared his Alan Jackson top 5, and I shared my Brad Paisley. This week, we are going to flip it. So just a recap, last week for Brad Paisley, I had my top 5 being number 5, Waiting on a Woman, number 4, Letter to Me, number 3, He Didn't Have to Be, number 2, Whiskey Lullaby, and number 1, When I Get Where I'm Going. So Tyler, you want to refresh the audience on your top 5 from Alan Jackson?
Yeah, so going in ascending order, I at the bottom of the list was Small Town Southern Man. At number 4 was Living on Love. At number 3 was Hard Hat and a Hammer. At number 2 was Mercury Blues. And at number 1 was Chattahoochee.
But yeah, all right. So we're going to swap it this week. So I will start with the top 5 Alan Jackson songs that I had. So you guys remember Tyler's list. So my number 5, and this was kind of hard to think about, but I'm going to choose Remember When. I just think that's a beautiful song of just reflecting on life. If you remember last week, I was picking like my favorite lyrics from the songs. It's kind of hard for this one, or something that stands out, because the entire song is just this reflection. And I think that it just all flows together so well. I'd say probably what stands out to me the most is the first 2 verses, when it's Remember When I Was Young and So Were You, and Time Stood Still, and Love Was All We Knew. And then it goes to Remember When We Vowed the Vows, Walked the Walk, Gave Our Hearts, Made the Start, and It Was Hard. We Lived, We Learned, Life Through Curves, There Was Joy, There Was Hurt, Remember When. So that's more the season of that I'm in life. So I think that that's kind of where I'm going to gravitate towards in the song. So it was kind of surreal to re-listen to this in preparation of this podcast, to be in that beginning portion of the song and then realize that the rest of the song is coming, and it's coming faster than you think. Because not sure. Let me see how old Alan Jackson was when he released this song. It came out in 2003, and Alan Jackson is 64 now. So he was about 45 when this song came out. So it's like, I'm sure it's coming faster than I think. But yeah, so number 5 for me is Remember When. Number 4, Drive for Daddy Jean. This is just a classic song in my opinion. There's a lot of classic Alan Jackson songs. This song specifically, I can remember my grandpa having me drive down the dirt road to our house, and I was like a little kid. Like, he should not have been letting me drive, and I remember just swerving and all that stuff. But it was really cool to have like that experience. And then we all, or at least a lot of us, have like those fond memories of learning how to drive and having, whether it's a grandparent, whether it's a parent, someone else like an older sibling, whoever it is, teach us how to drive. Definitely something that we look back on. The lyric that I chose from this song to reflect on was when it's in the second verse, where he said, "I'd sit up in the seat and stretch my feet out to the pedals, smiling like a hero that just received his medal." Kind of like that, just reminding me of like the first time like really driving and just feeling like so successful, feeling that sense of triumph, that sense of freedom that comes with being behind the wheel. That's just a song that I'll always gravitate back towards whenever I'm wanting to be reflective. So number 5, Remember When. Number 4, Drive for Daddy Jean. And then number 3 is Where I Come From. So this song is what introduced me into country music. This is probably close to, if not the first country song I ever heard. And I remember the corny, cheesy, wacky lyrics of the song, or at least that's what it sounded like to me as like a 3-year-old little kid listening to this. And just the imagery where it's just a story that he's telling about where, and like these people he's interacting, he's just telling them where he comes from. So the lyric for me for that song is in this, I believe it's the second verse again, where he said, "Well, I paid the tab and the lady asked me, how'd you like my biscuit?" And he says, "I'll be honest with you, ma'am, it ain't like mama fixed it." And as I was listening to it this time around, I was just like, ooh, Alan Jackson just flamed them. And he's like talking in like a cafe or wherever, diner in Detroit, like around the Detroit area. And being from Michigan, I was like, that's really savage. So you just got Alan Jackson just flaming people and then being like, well, where I come from. So that is a top tier song for me. That's number 3. Number 2 is 5 o'clock somewhere. And the lyrics for this are that whole first verse where he's talking about the sun is hot, workday passes like molasses in wintertime, but it's July, getting paid by the hour and older by the minute. Boss pushed me over the limit, could call him something, think I'll just call it a day. Because I think all of us that have worked a 9 to 5, all of us that have worked like that type of, like those those long, grueling hours can relate to this. This is such a relatable song. I can definitely remember like sitting in the workday and like listening to my music, and like this song would come on and be like, yeah, I could go for a hurricane right around now too. I get it, Alan. Like that sounds great. And then to top it off, you get the feature from Jimmy Buffett, and it's just this song is what I want to listen to by the ocean with a nice cocktail in my hand. It's like just the perfect vibe, and it's quotable too. Like I feel like I hear non-country fans say it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and I'm not sure if like that phrase originated with this song. Maybe it didn't, but that's always what I'm going to think of whenever I hear someone say that is the Alan Jackson song, 5 o'clock somewhere. And then number one, Tyler and I are in agreement with this one. It is Chattahoochee. I don't think that it could be anything else. This song is just, this might be my favorite country song of all time. That's how big of a song to me this is. I just, yeah, love this song. The classic line from the song that to me is the most iconic is when he says, "I settled for a burger and a grape snow cone." That's just like, who thinks of that? Like, that's just so random, and like just like it just paints like that picture. It's like not generic in any way. It's like specific. It feels like summer. It feels like summer. There's this coming of age like sense in this song that I just love, and yeah, just Chattahoochee is a fun word to say. Like when he's talking about it gets hotter, it's like we're gonna talk about like what he says that it's hotter than. Like that's just so, again, Alan Jackson being savage. Alan Jackson's low key a savage, and I love it.
I remember the first time that your wife, and I were in my truck together, and I played this song. She goes, "This song sounds inappropriate."
But it's like Alan Jackson to me is like one of the most like, maybe innocent's not the right word, but like one of the most family friendly country artists. But then you listen to this song and then you realize there's like, oh, that's what that's saying. I'm like, oh, that's so savage to me. But yeah, that's my top 5 Alan Jackson songs.
Yeah, I think I want to preface this. The Alan Jackson one, in my opinion, was very hard to do because he has so many songs where it's like, oh, I could easily make a top 5 list if I put these 5 songs on here and no one's going to disagree with me. And then at the same time, it's like, but he's also got all these other songs. I can make this top 5 list and people aren't really going to disagree with me either. So,
yeah,
but
like
going back to the line you talked about in Chattahoochee, sell for a burger and a grape snow cone, as well as the line that comes after it, I dropped her off early, but I didn't go home. Those are arguably, in my opinion, probably the 2 most iconic lines in country music. I think any country music fan, if they heard those anywhere or heard someone say them, they would instantly know what was being referenced.
Yeah, and let's give a shout out to Alan Jackson for being a gentleman in this scenario. Like the man's like trying to get lucky. She wasn't ready. He's like, all right, I'm not going to push it. I'll drop you off early.
Then go get hammered down by the river.
I'm gonna go swim. Like he's got his priorities set. Like this man, like he's gonna go swim in the Chattahoochee. I'm just like, all right,
Gonna have a case race with myself down at the riverbank.
Gonna have a nice burger, and a nice grape snow cone to cool off. Gonna go jump in the river, have a pyramid of cans, have that moonlight. Like it's like he's so chill about the entire like whole process of it. He's like, yeah, this is where life is right now. It's not with girls, it's not with anything else. It's the river, swimming in the river with my friends.
Yeah, I like in the music video when he's water skiing with blue jeans on too.
Yeah, that's iconic.
Plus his life vest. I have the Whiskey Riff button down with the print of his life vest on it. Yeah, arguably one of my favorite shirts.
Yeah, when my wife and I went to Nashville this past fall, we went to his Good Time bar in downtown, and I remember when the song came on in that bar from like a live band playing it, and I was just like, yes, this is life. This is the pinnacle of country music life. This is great. But yeah, so your top 5 Brad Paisley, Tyler, go ahead.
All right, let me pull back up here. Starting at the bottom of the list, I had "Remind Me," which is a song he did with Carrie Underwood back, I want to say 2012 or 2013. I remember being in middle school when it came out, because I think it would be 2012, because I had it on like my very first iPod, which was like an iPod 4. And I think I was in 7th grade. So I just remember, I don't remember why I liked it so much. I just really liked the song. So I was like, when I was making this, I was like, I guess I was like, I have to throw it on there somewhere, but I don't believe it was really that great of a song. I was like, it was just younger me being obsessive with it.
Yeah.
Number 4, I put "Mud on the Tires." That's a song I remember hearing way back as a kid, like single digit age. And then even to now, I still listen to it a lot. Taking his brand new truck off-roading, sounds like he brings it out a little farther than I probably would bring my truck, because I don't like it when my truck gets that dirty. But great song, really liked it. Number 3, I put "Whiskey Lullaby." I know I think you put it in 2nd place on your list, didn't you, last week?
Yeah, that's correct.
Again, probably the saddest country song I've heard. Be hard pressed to find a sadder one. Maybe if you dig deep enough, you can find one.
Mm-hmm.
Very good ballad song. I think it actually would probably fit well in a lot of like sadder movies that are set in the country, or more country themed movies. If you needed a sad ballad song, I think that would actually be a really good choice. 2nd place, I put "Letter to Me." I think I touched on this last week when you brought it up. Was we've all, even probably you and I in our young ages, have kind of come to the consensus where we're like, if we could go back in time and talk to 17-year-old self like he does in the song, there is stuff that we would actually, probably tell him, like, hey, in these next few years, you're going to want to do this, or you're not going to want to do this, or this would be a good idea versus this would not be a good idea. Just offer some advice, or even
Yeah.
just to give like a heads up, like, hey, here's what's, coming for you once you leave high school. That girl not liking you back is not going to be the epitome of your problems no more. And then number 1, my favorite song by Brad Paisley is "Country Nation." It's a really fun song. It's pretty upbeat. It kind of goes with that windows down, radio up country vibe. I also really like the music video for it, where it's all the college football mascots doing like everyday 9 to 5 jobs. Like, you have, I think the Michigan State Spartans mascot is out like as a pizza delivery guy. It was I remember the first time I seen it, I thought the music video was really funny, that at the end they all come together to play a game of football. So those are my top 5 Brad Paisley songs.
Again, with both of these artists, it's so hard to pick a top 5, and if someone else has a different top 5 than you can't really argue with them.
Yeah.
The catalog on both of these guys is just so deep. But yeah, so that's our top 5s. Let us know what you guys want to hear us do a top 5, top 10 of next. Is it another artist? Is it type of song we're talking about? Whiskey Lullaby being potentially the saddest country song. Should Tyler and I do some research and actually confirm that to be true or not? Who knows? But
Give a
moving on.
top 5 list of contenders that could beat it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Moving on, we're going to go to another segment. Something that we didn't include last week, but we're going to include this week is small town life. And something about small town life that Tyler and I both very much appreciate is bar night trivia. So, Tyler, how about you talk about what you and Justin Jones got to experience this past week?
Yeah, so when we say bar night trivia, like if you have like your local dive bar or whatever, or just your local, hometown's small bar, hole in the wall bar, they offer trivia night. I think it would definitely be worth checking out. I know once you had moved back to Michigan for a few months, the main thing you wanted was for us and our other friend to become regulars at a bar somewhere. So we basically found probably the most small town bar we could think of. I mean, the only thing that really classifies that town as a town is the fact that there's a bar and an electric company. It's the only two businesses in the town. So, but
Also, the bar doesn't have Wi-Fi at all. You have no
yeah,
cell service. You have no Wi-Fi. They have a sign there that's like, "Talk to someone." Like, we're not gonna get Wi-Fi. So it's like it's
right.
proudly small town, and I love it.
So, yeah, it was, and they have some pretty good food too. I'm not gonna lie, but they have trivia night there on Thursdays, and I remember Justin Jones, or I'm just gonna refer to him as JJ from now on. Kind of seen it on the menu. I think it was the first time we brought you there, and he brought it up. Was, well, hey, they have trivia night, and you like trivia, so maybe we should try that. So I think it was like either the next week or the week afterwards. We actually tried it. We showed up and we won on the first night because off of that, it was off of the chess question.
Yeah.
But we ended up, basically every week since after that point, just going there. I mean, there was a few weeks we took off either due to inclement weather or other reasons, but it was a lot of fun. And I think for a lot of like these small town bars and stuff, I think that's a good way to draw in, especially on Thursdays. I think Thursday's a slower night because more people, it's close enough to the weekend, or I guess it's during the week, so you don't pull a lot of people, but it's also close enough to Friday to where people are gonna be like, no, I'll just wait until tomorrow to go out for a beer or something after work or whatever. So I think them doing it on Thursdays especially, but just having like a trivia night and being able to like do something to pull people in is very good for their business. And I think it's very helpful if people show up and support those decisions and those like special event type things that a lot of small town bars do. Because I'm sure this isn't the only one that does, trivia night.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, one of the things I loved about trivia night at a small town bar is, and I'm sure it feels this way. Actually, yeah, I know it feels this way other nights too, but um it's just like the communal aspect of it. Like we got to know like all the other teams, like they got to know us a little bit more. Like we got to recognize people. And I thought that was really cool. It's like small town life, like living in a small town where you can go to the grocery store and run into 10 people that you know, all like in a microcosm in a small town bar. So I like that feeling. I remember when we went for breakfast the day after Thanksgiving and you had the regulars that were coming in and like waitresses knows all their names. I'm like, that to me is just so ideal to like be a regular, to like just know people. I think that there's something special with that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
a lot of fun. And then, of course, since the new year started and you guys have, since moved back out of state, we really hadn't gone until JJ and I finally just went this week as just the two of us. And then we still ended up winning, which was actually kind of cool. Like it was kind of like it felt like the return scene. I don't know if anyone here has seen the movie Rango or not, the movie with the lizard that kind of like bullshit his way into the becoming the sheriff, and then he like leaves, and then he like goes on his little spiritual journey once he leaves because he gets like shamed out of the town.
Mhm.
Then he like comes back and has like this big moment when he comes back where he becomes a hero. It kind of had that feeling to it to win after being gone for so long and then coming back. If you have a local small town bar that offers trivia night, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Pulling a team together and seeing where it goes. So
What would you say to someone that maybe isn't from a small town, is a little sketched out by like dive bars or something like that? What would you say to them to like encourage them to check one of these places out or check out their local small town bar?
like they don't want to like go to the little hole in the wall bar, like they're more used to like the big inner city type bar scene.
Yeah, or like more like the craft breweries or something like that.
I mean, I guess if you're one of those people that doesn't want to go there because you're afraid that they're not going to have beer you like. I mean, I know, Grant, we're from Michigan too, so they obviously have Two Hearted and stuff and on tap, but I'd say it's worth checking out. Like, if you can put aside, if you're a craft beer snob, if you can put aside not having your double or triple IPA or imperial stout or whatever, if you're someone who's more used to like the more poppy and hip new bars, maybe kind of going to one of these places, because we were also kind of like the younger people when we showed up. Like, it was, not to call people old and be disrespectful, but
They
most
were
of the people there
surprised
were
that we
like
knew some
40s
answers.
to 50s and up, and then we were there and we were all in our 20s. So um yeah, I would just say, I guess, check it out, throw a team together and just see where it goes. Like, if you don't like it, it was free. It's free. It was free for us to play. Like, you didn't have to
Yeah,
buy in. So, I mean, really, all you're doing is you're just paying for your dinner and your drink. And most of those places, all the small town bars I've been in, their food all slaps. So you're probably going to get at least a good meal out of it.
definitely. You know what's interesting? Just a side, like kind of off topic note that I was thinking of as we're talking about being like one of the younger groups. So something that we noticed in going is like the people that had lived through the stuff of the questions, like obviously knew the questions and knew the answers. But then for us as like younger groups to like get some of those questions right, I think it just kind of shows like you had the people that lived through it versus the people that grew up with the internet and how like that's kind of shaped our knowledge too. So we have access to information. I think that's kind of cool. But yeah, that's a side note. But yeah, I'd say there's a simplicity to small town bars that I want to encourage like the craft brewery person to go try and just go to small town bars every now and then. Like, trust me, I love my craft breweries. My dream is to open up a craft brewery one day. But I think there is a simplicity and a just a smallness to going to the small town bar that we typically miss out on. But speaking of beers and speaking of bars, it is time once again for our beer of the week. Tyler, what is your beer of the week?
Actually, this week I think I'm gonna actually be going with Miller Lite. So obviously, last week I kind of said that my favorite beer is Coors Banquet. Basically the Bud heavy version of Coors, or I guess what Budweiser is to Bud Light is what Coors Banquet is to Coors Light. But honestly, out of all the light beers, my favorite one is Miller Lite. It used to be Bud Light for a while, and then I had a coworker when I worked at an auto parts store, as well as one of my coworkers now. They kind of wore me down on Miller Lite and switched my opinion. So I think out of all the light beers, it's probably got the best taste, as well as, obviously being a light beer, you can drink quite a few of them without having the side effects of if you drink like 5 or 6 craft beers, getting the rot gut from it. So I'm gonna actually go with Miller Lite this week
That's
as
it.
my beer of the week.
That's an interesting choice. Um, I don't hate Miller Lite, but it's definitely not my first choice to drink. But I respect it of you. I think when I think of Miller Lite, I think small town bar, which is fine. So I'm going to go with the craft brewery side of things. My beer of the week this week is D's Nuts Brown Ale from Beard's Brewery. That is a brewery up in Petoskey, Michigan. And I remember when I first found out about this beer, I thought it was a complete joke. But they do know what they're doing up there at Beard's Brewery. I have had this beer before. I didn't realize it when we were talking about it earlier this week, and we talked about how like there's a beer called this. I was like, oh, I actually have had that, and I enjoy brown ales. Brown ales are definitely up there with being some of my favorite because they're not as dark as porters and stouts, but they aren't as light, obviously, as the other stuff. So to me, it's a nice in between where you can get a lot of flavor when a brown ale is done, right? So I'm going to go with D's Nuts Brown Ale from Beard's Brewery up in Petoskey, Michigan. Shout out to them. go check out their beers.
Brown ales are one of those beers too, because I like dark beer as well, but brown ales are like one of those things for me. They're kind of actually hit or miss with me, because they're either, in my opinion, they're really good. Like Shorts Brewing's Bel Air Brown to me tastes like chocolate milk. Versus I've had Rockford Brewing's brown ale, the Rogue River Brown, and that one I'm kind of like, if there was literally any other dark beer on the menu, I would order it besides this. So
Yeah.
definitely kind of a hit or miss genre for me, but I'll definitely have to check that one out.
Yeah, brown ales are like one of the ones like you said, when I get a good brown ale, it's in contention to be like my favorite type of beer. And like I'd say stouts overall are my favorite type, but it's always up there, and I'll have to share some more stouts this week. I was really torn between sharing another one that I've been having recently, but I'll save that for next week. But yeah, what are you guys drinking? Let us know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe, share. We'd love to see the platform grow and get to share more content with you guys. So thank you. Have a great week. I am JWolf.
And I'm Tyler.
And so long.